Okay. My name is Christine Stapleton, and at the time of the situation, I was the Associate Director of Athletics at the University of Waterloo. So when it was the end of March 2010, what happened was members of the University of Waterloo football team were kind of bad character. They were stealing items from other students, and at the time we thought that's all it was. They were using a stolen credit card to buy gas, and the gas attendant at the time was able to phone the police in time when one of the student athletes used a stolen credit card, and the police got there in time to catch them. And when the police pulled them over and charged them with using a stolen credit card, they found enough paraphernalia from performance-enhancing drugs that they were able to get a search warrant from the house that those football players were living in. My role as Assistant Director of Athletics was to manage the football team. So the Monday or Tuesday, I can't remember now, of this week, the end of April, the football coach came into my office and said, "Christine, we have a problem. Two of my football players were charged with using a stolen credit card to buy gas." And I said, "Well, that's okay. We'll sort through that." I'd been through a lot of performance issues or behavior issues, so I thought we'll sort through that. And we were gonna work at it that week. Then the next day, he came into me. I came to work. I'll never forget. I walked down the hall and I saw our football coach in the conference room at the end of the hall, his head in his hands like this, and I knew something way bigger was happening. So what the police did after they found the stolen credit cards in the car, or the gas, they found the paraphernalia in the car, they were able to get a search warrant for these young men's house. They went to the house and they found 10,000 units of human growth hormones and steroids in their house, way more than enough to charge them with trafficking. And so now we have a bigger issue on our football team. So when we found out that members of our football team had performance-enhancing drugs, we contacted the Center of Ethics in Sport and self-disclosed and said, "We have an issue on our football team." This was on a Tuesday. And they came to us and said, "Well, we're going to target test. So take some of their physical training, so their testing results." So our football team, so this was again, for end of March, 1st of April, you would have testing results, people who would have shown increased testing results, and you should target them. And I ethically couldn't do that. I didn't think that was fair. I said, the director at the time, Bob Copeland, and I said, "No, we're going to test the whole team." And went to our president, it was David Johnston, former Governor General of Canada, and said, "This is what's happening." Cost us about $25,000 to test the team. 2 days later, we did a surprise test on the team, called the men all into the locker room at 7 a.m. and tested the entire team. 9 guys, 7 of them self-disclosed, 2 of them kind of ran away from testing, therefore were presumed guilty, tested positive for 1, human growth hormone. We did blood and urine tests and tested the entire group of men. 70 guys were tested on that one morning. And subsequently, once we found out that 9 guys were tested positive or self-disclosed, the Governor General at the time and the Board of Governors of the University of Waterloo suspended the team for a year. So what happened from that? A lot of learning. So the guys... lost a lot of guys. A lot of the guys transferred out. There was a lot of guilty, we're not guilty, why should we be held accountable for the actions of a few? But they all learned a lot. And some of the guys that had self-disclosed, some of them are police officers now. One of them is the assistant general manager for the Toronto Argonauts. So learned a lot. And one guy is a professional MMA. So kind of stayed with what he was doing and found that that's what he wanted to do. And so that's where he stayed. So it was, and a year later, the team was brought back in. And this past year, they did their best ever results since 2010. They were 4-4 in the league, had the Rookie of the Year and the Coach of the Year. So that's the end of my story.
Thank you.
You're welcome.